Hello, and welcome to 4 Tips for Performing Under Stress. I'm Dr. Devana Pilzik, and I'm a kinesiologist who, for over 15 years, has dedicated my life to helping people like you. And so I want to help you understand, how do we reduce stress? How do we reduce fatigue? And ultimately, how do we get you to perform better? So, whether it's in a sport or whether it's out there in your work life, my job is to help you with your job. And so, if you are feeling right now just not yourself, if maybe you wake up every day and you're going to work, whether work is away or it's at home, you're feeling just unproductive, you feel like you can't focus, even though you're trying, you're doing a lot, but it just doesn't feel right. Maybe you're waking up every morning and you just are lacking that motivation like you used to have. Maybe you're feeling anxious and you're thinking about all the things on the news and the little tweets and dings and sounds that your phone is telling you that there's stuff going on that you have to pay attention to, but it's just kind of making you rattled. Maybe you're feeling irritable, cranky, angry, just like you can't feel calm and balanced and centered anymore. Or maybe you're not sleeping very well. And for those of us who are sleeping well, you sleep, you wake up, but then you still feel tired all day. And you're going, what the heck? Why do I feel like this? And so I'm here today because I want to, one, explain to you why you're feeling this way and that it's actually totally normal. Two, help you work through some of the anxieties that you might be experiencing with this really bizarre time that we're going through. And then three, give you some tips that you can actually use in your day job. And so before we can go through those tips, I actually want to walk you through understanding the stress response in your brain. And so if you can understand that, you will start to see why you're just feeling so off right now. And so I'm not going to go into great detail, but this is basically your brain. And this part here, where my cursor is the fight or flight response. It's the area of the brain called the primitive brain or the midbrain that's responsible for triggering that response that gets your heart rate up, gets you feeling that ooh feeling that you might experience when maybe you see a scary snake or something, or maybe it's when all of a sudden you see your boss is calling you, or you've just realized you missed a customer call, and you go, oh no, that feeling is triggered from this part of the brain. Okay. And so the brain's main purpose, amazingly, is actually just to keep you alive. And so it is always searching and looking for any signs of danger or threat or harm that might be out there in the environment. And so when it detects these things, it goes off and it shoots up your adrenaline, shoots up your heart rate, makes you sweat, makes you feel nauseous, shaky. And so it's trying to help you, it's trying to warn you, but it's not always accurate because sometimes it goes off and that customer that's upset really isn't a real threat, right? I mean, they're not really going to harm you, but your brain still reads it as a threat. And so later on, I'm going to actually show you how to get out of that responsive, oh no, and start to be more logical and use this part of your brain, which is the front part called the prefrontal cortex. And so that's our rational thinking, logical part. And so we're going to utilize that in a little bit. But what I want you to see is actually something kind of cool. It was some research done by the Mayo Clinic, and they were studying stress and how the brain is responds to certain things in life. And what they found was the brain really likes three things. And so obviously it likes to feel joy and happiness and pleasure. We're always drawn to those things that make us laugh, and the work that's fun versus the work that's boring. That's no shock there. The other thing the brain likes is new, unusual, novel things. It's drawn to that. But the one thing that trumps all of it is threat. And so anytime the brain perceives, itself to be in threat mode, that something's coming, bringing danger, it will trump anything that you are doing. And so let's say you're having a grand old time right now, laughing or something, but then a rattlesnake enters the room. Immediately your brain would be drawn to that, and it would send off that signal in the middle of the brain going, uh-oh, we have danger, danger, and you would be pulled into noticing that. And so one of the reasons, actually the main reason why you're feeling so funky and off or anxious right now, is because your brain is getting hit with all kinds of information right now about the environment that we are living in. And so that information might be from the news. It might be from pictures that are being sent to you. It might be through conversations, but you're hearing it every day. It's being talked about, it's being shown. And so even though you have those moments in life that might bring a little joy and chuckle, your brain still notices that things are different. This is not your typical work environment that you're used to, and not your typical coworkers, right? And although some of these are kind of funny, you go outside and you still notice, if you've gone for a drive recently, that things are just not the same. And so if you can imagine right now your brain, and I'm holding my hands together like it's a little bowl. If you can imagine that that's your brain, half that capacity is being pulled into all of those pictures that I showed you, those conversations, those thoughts, those what ifs. What if I get hit with this? What if I lose my job? What if? And it's pulling your attention, it's pulling your energy from the other half of that, I'm holding my hands together here, the other side, which is really meant to be focused on work, but you're just not fully there. And so first of all, give yourself a little bit of forgiveness that all of us are going through this, and all of us are just feeling not quite ourselves right now, because literally the energy to be spent doing your job and living your normal life is now being pulled into looking and noticing threat everywhere. And so along with this pandemic of a virus that you hear every day for months now, we are really suffering from a pandemic of anxiety. And so anxiety is different than fear. And so I really want you to understand this part here. When I say I feel afraid, afraid and fear is right now. So let's say I have a fear, like of spiders. So I'm sitting here in my chair, and then all of a sudden I realize there's a spider on me. I start to panic. I start to, smack my shirt, get it off of me. That is a fear response. My heart rate goes up, my breathing goes up. Maybe I get a little sweaty, a little shaken up. But once that spider is gone, the fear goes away and it's done. Anxiety is different. Anxiety is about the future. It's about the what ifs in life. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if my spouse loses their job? What if we don't have enough savings? What if we can't find toilet paper? What if we don't have meat? What if? And we start to feel the fear response based on the what if future state that may or may not ever happen. And so psychotherapist Dr. Stephen Pravel actually broke down this anxiety into an equation. And so what he said was that what anxiety really comes down to is your perception of that threat over your perception of how well you can handle it, also known as your resources. And so my perception of that spider on me, I might have told myself, oh, that's a black widow. And I over thought that the threat was bigger than it really was. And then maybe when I was on me and I'm panicking, I totally forgot of all of my options of how I could handle the situation. And so the way that you reduce anxiety in yourself and in others, and this is a really important slide because again, you, your loved ones, your coworkers, you're feeling this. And so if you can practice this, this one slide alone will really help you and them. And so those moments that you're feeling anxiety, what you have to do to reduce anxiety is that you take that perceived threat, that spider on my shirt, and then you say, is it really a black widow, Devana? Really? And you say, no, it's not. It's a daddy long legs. Okay. Can they hurt you? No. Am I going to die from it? No. Am I going to go to the hospital if it bites me? No. Okay. So the threat, I actually put it in my head being worse than it really is. So if you can reduce the threat, and really you're going to have to take a minute to break it down and say, okay, am I really just over freaking out here on this thing? And most of the times we are, because we respond to the sensation that our brain went off and said, oh, my heart rate's up and my breathing's up. It must be real danger. Not always. Remember, I told you it's not always that smart. Um, and so we got to reduce that threat. But in addition to reducing the threat, we've got to increase our ability to handle that threat. So this is where I say, okay, Devana, so we got a spider on us. All you have to do is go push it away or go smack the thing. Can walk over to your husband and say, hey, can you get this off of me? But we have options of ways to handle this. I can take my shirt off slowly. I can shake my shirt. I can do a lot of things that would not trigger the spider to bite me or go down my blouse or something. And so if we can reduce the threat, increase our ability to handle that threat, our anxiety will come down. And so I started out my career actually working with athletes, and it was always our goal to get athletes to perform at their best. And so you have to time things right. You got to obviously get them trained. And so, with all of that good nutrition, sleep, and training, one of the things we always looked at was stress levels. And so, what this is a performance curve. It's looking at here at the bottom. This is your stress level. Okay. So, as we go to the right, our stress levels go up. And on the left side here, this is our performance level. And so if I'm here in the calm zone, this would be me when I was watching Game of Thrones and enjoying that and eating Cheetos all the time. I love that show. But this is a great place to feel relaxed, but it's not the best place to be to perform well. And so if I had to say go run a race, or maybe I had to give a speech, or I had a big client that I had to give a presentation to, this is where you want me. You want me to feel energized, focused. It's work, but it doesn't feel hard. And so that's where optimal performance occurs. However, the reason why you are starting to feel funky, off, irritable, unmotivated is because you're starting to fall, like many of us, in this side of the curve. And so maybe you haven't lost your job, then you're here. Maybe you haven't been directly affected by the virus, so you're here. But you're entering the red zone because you're thinking about it, you're feeling it, you're experiencing the after effects of others losing their job, of the news, of all of that stuff. And so for those of us who actually have experienced maybe being laid off or actually having a loved one get sick, we are now operating in this zone where we really are in a state of overstress or distress. And so we're feeling more fatigued, exhausted. Maybe we're even getting a little bit sicker and run down. And so if you're feeling that way, this is why. It's normal to feel that way based on your circumstances. However, we can make it better. And so I just first wanted you to understand that that's what's going on with your brain, okay? But there are some ways that we can make work less stressful. And so if you are working, definitely utilize these. And even if you aren't working, maybe you've recently lost your job, bring some structure into your day, okay? And I'm going to show you that when we get to the boundary section, but you can still use these things to help get you through the situation. And so let's start off with our buddies, bite-sized boundaries and breaks, the 4 Bs. And so first we're starting here with buddies. And so what I want you to do is think about all the high stress jobs that you can possibly think of. Pilots, um, police officers, paramedics. These are all jobs that require people to be in high stress, possibly crisis, but they are high risk situations. And so even when you've got teachers working with pre-K and kindergartners, you almost always see a paraprofessional helping them, okay, because that's a lot to take on. When you have a confined space where you have to go into a sewer or a fuel tank, you always have one person on the outside, one person that goes in. And so they're a buddy team. They look out for each other. So right now, one of the first things I want you to do is find yourself a buddy, okay? I want you to find somebody that every week you check in with, you talk to, you can vent to, complain to, cry to, but it's a person that's got your back. And so again, look at these pictures. You know, you got your pilot, you got your co-pilot, you got your partner, right? And so that's what you're looking for, is someone that can be there for you. Even better if they know how to do some of your job, just in case you need a backup. But again, high stress work means that we tend to be drawn more towards others under crisis and high stress. So go ahead and just set up that buddy right now. because you need them to help you through this. The next thing, I want you to stop taking on so much and such a broad scope of, oh my gosh, I have to do this and this and this and this and this, and I don't know where to start. I want you to start to bite size your work. Okay. So let's pretend we work at a newspaper. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I have to get this whole newspaper out every day. How am I going to do this? This is how you do it. You say, ready? On Monday, close of business, I want the interview done. By Tuesday at lunch, I want your draft. And by Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., it's going to hit the press. And so the way that you reduce some of the stress with your workload is set very clear expectations of yourself or of others. Set very clear deadlines. So Monday by noon, Tuesday by close of business, end of week, Friday, 9 a.m. And then you just narrow in the scope of work. Because remember that capacity, and again, I'm holding my hands together, your brain, half of it is being pulled into that threat mode. And so if we're only running at half capacity, then you've got to do as much as you can to keep that part of your brain and your energy level focused. And so by making the work smaller, you're going to be actually more productive, and it's going to restore some of that motivation and, oh, I've got this kind of feeling. Boundaries. If you have ever watched a sporting event, like a football game, you will notice that there are boundaries everywhere. And the reason why there are boundaries is because as you're playing, you don't want to be thinking about what's in scope, what's out of scope, what's up, what's down, what's in, what's out. And so boundaries set limits. And remember, these athletes out here in the field are in a stress response. They've kind of got tunnel vision. They're focused on the work that they're doing. They don't need to worry about where do the spectators sit? Where do I play? Where do the players play and where does the bench sit? They just need those lines to tell them, don't cross this line. You got to kick the ball. Here are the lines. This is where you get it through. Those are boundaries. They're also known as limits. And also, before I forget, with the bite size, see this here? All the, sorry, I can bring up my cursor here. The lines here, every 10 yards, right? It marks every 10 yards because you bite size the work to get to the other end. You don't just say, ready, go. No, you say, try to get 10 yards. Try to get 10 yards, try to get 10 yards. And that's how you focus on the work. So what does setting boundaries look like in your day? Well, it looks like this. Think of your workday on a clock, okay? There should be a very clear start time. Within about 15 minutes every day, you should wake up and start your day at the same time. Then put the most important part of your work, if you work a day shift, the most important part of your work, the hard stuff, physically hard stuff, mentally taxing things, or the biggest, most important goals that you need to achieve need to be done between 8 and noon. The research shows that we are fresh and clear in the morning at this time, and as the day goes on, we tend to fatigue more. So put that important stuff in the morning. Then you have to take lunch, and I don't mean just eat at your desk. I mean take lunch and move away, go somewhere else, call a friend, but I want you to walk away and take a physical break. This is your boundary of your you time. I want you to take it. Then do some of the work that's less cognitively demanding. And so some of the phone calls, the emails, wrap up work, do that in the afternoon, okay? And then, ready? Stop working. You have got to stop. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because so many of us who are working and we're either still, we're looking for work or we're still working in our companies, even though we might gone through layoffs, we are overworking ourselves right now and we are going to burn out if you have not already burned out. Okay, so I want to prevent this. And one of those ways that we do this is by stopping. Okay, you have to turn it off. You don't see athletes playing indefinitely. They play a game, they play in quarters, and then they stop. So you need to do the same thing. And speaking of that, athletes in the sports world is a huge billion-dollar business. And so they realize that each one of these athletes makes them money. And so they are very important, just like every employee that you is on your team, or you yourself as a business owner. You have to take breaks. And so the harder the work, the more frequent you have to take breaks. And so what that looks like is within your workday, you need to bake in intentional breaks every roughly 90 minutes. Call your friend, have lunch with your kids, take a break in the afternoon, go for a walk, take a quick break right before the end of your day, and then stop working. Breaks prevent burnout. Okay? You cannot work indefinitely. You have to take breaks. The mind and the body can only stay vigilant and on task for so long until they start to mess up, slow down, and you're just not as productive. So I want to see you walk away more from your work, actually to be more productive. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, think of the athletes. The harder the game, the more often they call the timeouts, the more they use those breaks during the quarters to rehydrate, to mentally check out for a minute, and then get back in the game. But you say, Devana, I don't have a 9 to 5 job. What about me? Doesn't matter. You can still use these concepts. The military, emergency rooms, um, funeral directors, journalists, air traffic controllers, firefighters. They use buddy systems. They use teams, right? For those shifts, like a firefighter, they might work a very hard 24, 48 hours, but then they are off. They have a boundary as to when they start and when they stop. Okay. If the work is long, they take breaks. They have to break it up. They have to have shifts where they rotate people in and out. And so you can still utilize these concepts even if you don't have a 9 to 5 job. And so hopefully this has helped you guys understand why, number one, you're feeling that funky feeling. It's because that threat mode is going off in your brain and it's taking up a lot of your energy. A lot of that capacity to focus on your work has been taken away to focus on that threat. That feeling of anxiety now is something that you can do a little bit better with controlling. If you can walk yourself down from perceived threats of layoffs, of getting sick, of the what ifs, handle them by walking them down and showing yourself how you can increase your ability to handle those situations. And then finally, implement your buddy system, taking more breaks, making that work bite size, and setting clear boundaries. And so if you'd like to learn more, please reach out and contact me at devanahpg@gmail.com, or you can reach out and check out our website at hpgsolutions.net. This was the short version of the training, but I have lots of really cool activities, and I can actually help you personally redesign your day for you or your team so that you are more effective in what it is you do every day. And so I hope you've enjoyed this, and stay tuned. There'll be more to come. And don't forget, keep performing at your best.